This is Family Time 89, and we're talking about problems and perspectives. We're back to responsible decision making for our social emotional learning competencies. And when we're going to make decisions about anything, it's important for us to recognize there are different perspectives on the same topic, on the same situation. What I want my students to do this week is to identify a problem or some issue that could either be a personal issue or something that's close to home, or a societal issue, something that we do see in the news, that we talk about as a society. And I want you to consider potential perspectives associated with that issue. Now, if you're doing an individual thing, maybe it's something in your own life. For my students, maybe you feel a certain way about something and your parents, grandparents, guardian, whoever it is, feels differently about that. It's an important thing to try to consider both perspectives. I've had that conversation with students where they maybe feel a parent is overbearing sometimes. And I'll try to at least suggest that, well, that might be true. I remember feeling that way when I was in high school, and I definitely bucked. I fought with my mom particularly a lot, and I have a good relationship with her now. Always respected her, very appreciative of her throughout my whole life. We used to argue a lot because I've maybe been bullheaded at times in my life. I might still be at times now, but we would butt heads because I wanted to be very independent. I wanted to do things my own way. I would want to get the last word in, all of those sorts of things. And I would sometimes feel like my mom was overbearing or was putting too many restraints on me. And I would compare to other people, well, this kid doesn't have a curfew, or this friend of mine got to do these things. But looking back, I feel like my parents actually did a great job of balancing, giving me limits and making sure I adhered to those limits, but also giving me a lot of freedoms when I earned them, when I showed that I could be responsible about things. I took a lot of pretty big road trips and went and did things like that with buddies when I was in high school that I don't know if I would feel super comfortable letting my kids do that when they get to that age, which won't be that far away. But I think I'll try to give them some of that freedom because I think it really worked for me. But that's what I mean. We can do a personal thing, and you can talk about the different perspectives and why those perspectives might exist. Like I said, I try to remind some of my students that, well, if your parents are on top of you for stuff, it shows, hopefully, that they care. And there are some people, there are far too many people, far too many children who have parents who aren't really invested in their lives, who don't have a lot of affection and a lot of attention at home. It doesn't mean we always have to love everything, but it's good to try to recognize the other perspective and why that perspective exists. If we're talking about larger societal issues, I really think it boils down to the same thing. It's often two sides of the same coin. I think most of the time when people are advocating for one side or another, and that's a tricky thing too. We've gotten to a point where a lot of issues are sort of presented to us as black and white, as one side or the other, as these are the only two options, and a hard reality that comes with growing up, getting older, through life experiences, that not everything is cut and dry like that. Not everything is black and white. There is a whole spectrum of gray for a lot of issues. And we have to decide for ourselves where we fall on that spectrum. And even when people have opposing views to ours, it's important for us to take the time to at least recognize the other perspectives and to consider why those perspectives exist. As always, I don't want to influence any of my students to think a specific way, but I do want you to think. And I want you to consider, if I'm coming at this from this perspective, why is this other person coming at it from this end? And a lot of times, it's the same basic human needs that are driving both of our behaviors. A lot of the things we cling to, a lot of the decisions we make are based on things like fear or just general concern. I think I'll see people totally different political views, totally different social views. And I really think if you boil it down, those people are trying to protect the things that they have. They're trying to do what they think is right by their own morals, their own convictions. They're trying to support and protect the people around them. And if we can recognize that, if we can recognize that these are different perspectives that relate to this issue, but here's where they're coming from, we can find some common ground. Even if we don't find common ground in our perspectives or our beliefs, we can find common ground in where those beliefs start. In kind of the root feelings and emotions that lead to those things. There's always some common ground. And we just have to get to the root of the thing. So that's what we're doing this week. Just identifying some sort of problem or issue and trying to recognize different perspectives. Not that we have to agree with those different perspectives, but what are some different perspectives that exist? Where do those perspectives come from? Why do they exist? That's how we start to empathize with people. And empathizing with people doesn't mean condoning or agreeing. It means pursuing understanding. And that's one of the greatest things we can do. Let's have a great week. Much love.